Welcome, Author Nation. This is the last of our St. Pete Beach broadcasts or podcasts, whatever we're at. I'm running out of gas here, but I figured, bring your mic in a little bit so we can make sure we get the sultry tones from you.
I can scooch over.
Save the best for last. Diana Xarissa is here to tell you how she does it all.
I don't do it all. How I do a lot.
Yeah. So we met in 2018.
Yeah.
Over breakfast, if I remember correctly.
Yes, you bought me breakfast, which was very kind of you. Yes.
You were one of the people that signed up for my little meetups.
I had no idea who you were.
No. Just did it. Just signed up.
I'm like, it's a meetup. It sounds interesting. He's a business guy. I know nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was when I don't know, I had like 32 sessions, and like they were all filled in like an hour, and I didn't save any time for like breaks, or my wife was bringing me tea in between. It was not a well planned.
I got quite lucky because I got you early in the morning.
Yeah.
And before you got too tired.
Yeah.
But because I think I was the only person willing to sign up for 8 a.m. in Vegas.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then you got breakfast because
I did.
Yeah, other people they didn't get a meal. They got stiff.
Well, it was like 99-cent breakfast at Fridays. To be fair,
right.
It wasn't an extravagant feast.
Yeah,
but
that was a funny one. It was an author talking about. She was at Sam's Town, and her husband was worried because he didn't see any credit card charges. And she's like, well, I had cash in my wallet, and I didn't really seem to get through that. Everything was so cheap at that place. Yeah. Those were the days.
Yeah. I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner on Fridays that day.
Oh, my condolences.
And you were still in that same booth.
I probably was. Yeah. So let's get into it. Why don't you help people understand, first off, like who you are, what you're writing, and then we'll get into some of the uniqueness of your process.
So I am Diana Xarissa. I have been publishing since 2013. I published my first cozy mystery in 2014, and that is the one that sort of jump-started my business. I had a whole bunch of books out before that didn't do anything. And then I published Aunt Bessie Assumes, and things sort of took off from there. Not huge. I didn't have like an instant bestseller. I didn't sell 1 million copies. But I sold 2 or 3 books a day, which was quite exciting for me at that point.
Yeah.
And then I built a business from there. And so when book 1 consistently kept selling, and again, it was only a handful of copies a day, but it was selling, I wrote book 2 as fast as I possibly could. So it came out 2 months later. And at that point, Amazon introduced pre-orders for indies, and they gave you 90 days. So I put book 3 on pre-order, and I wrote book 3 as fast as I possibly could. And then once I got into the routine of that, then I added a second series and a third series and a whole bunch of other things.
Now, you're so when was it that you really felt that like everything was like it was really a career? Because I know what we were just talking about it a minute ago, and there was a little bit of a mindset thing with you and all this.
Right. So so when I started, I had no expectations. I was hoping to make enough money to make part-time job money, so I didn't actually have to go out and find a part-time job. I was a stay-at-home mom. A little bit of extra income was necessary, so I was looking for a part-time job, but I didn't want to impact my kids' lives. They had all these activities and all that stuff. So I thought if I could make 10 to 15K a year, that's what I need. So I'm like, if I can sell enough of those books. Well, it turns out when you set a goal, but you don't write it down and you don't focus on it, as soon as you get to that goal, you're like, that's not enough. I need more. Yeah. But so 2014, I released the first 3 Bessies. Year 1, 2013, before I started Cozies, I made $143. Don't laugh. I know everybody says it was so easy to make money in those days, and I'm like, not for everybody.
No.
2014, by the end of the year, I had 3 Bessie books and I made $11,000. And I was really kind of excited. And I said to my husband, I'm going to make $50K next year. And he kind of laughed at me, but he kind of laughed at me when I started, so I wasn't surprised. But year 3, a bunch of different things happened. I kept writing Bessies. I introduced a second series. Amazon introduced Kindle Unlimited, so now people could borrow my books instead of buying my books, so that helped. And I also got a BookBub, which in those days was a
career
bigger
change.
deal. Yeah, it introduced my book to a lot more. The first book in that series to a lot more readers, and my income just sort of shot up exponentially. So by the end of year 3, I was almost, but not quite, making 6 figures. I was still treating it like a hobby. I met Joe, and I'm like, "Oh, it's just a hobby," and Joe kind of laughed at me then too.
Yeah. No, it's not a hobby anymore. Not according to the IRS.
Yeah, right. I was paying my taxes,
Yes,
hobby or not, I was.
Yeah, you were, but it was like, yeah, there's some things that you do here to pay a little bit less.
Yeah.
So, cool. So, like, now it's going on, and I know what might help folks, especially authors that are listening to this, is you've mentioned about writing fast. Could you kind of walk through and break down more about your process? And you're definitely not, like, how do I want to put this? From what I know about you, you're not like just rapid release. That's not what this is about. Because it's about you're just generally a fast writer. Like,
I am a fast writer, and for me, the writing is the fun part.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, and so, like I said, I started with Aunt Bessie, and then I added a second series and a third series. I'm actually writing. I hate to say this,
you can admit it. If you need the therapy pillow, it's right here.
I'm currently writing across 7 different series.
Okay.
But what I do, I learned a lot about myself in this process. I learned that I'm a control freak, which is why I don't have an assistant, and I do it all myself, because
Okay.
I found out I'm a control freak. But I also, I knew, but I found out even more that deadlines freak me out. External deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote book 2 as fast as I could and put it out when it was ready. Then Amazon said, have a pre-order. So I put book 3 on pre-order, and I kind of didn't sleep well until that book was written. So I learned that deadline's going to freak me out.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as book 3 went to the editor, I started writing book 4, because I'm like, I am not comfortable, because I knew when book 3 came out, I wanted to put book 4 on pre-order.
Yeah.
And Amazon was only giving me 90 days, and this was in the dark ages before they were more generous with their timings. So after I did, by the time I finished writing book 4, which was on pre-order, it was finished almost before I put it on pre-order. So then I thought, this is making me more comfortable with what I'm doing. So for the next year, I wrote everything as fast as and I just kept buying back more time.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the big admission that makes all other authors cringe. I write a year ahead. And I write so I'm currently writing books for 2025. I have 9 books done. I have 3 more that I have to do. Again, they're all personal deadlines that I set for myself. I'll sit down in December, and I will look at all the sales data for the previous year,
Mm-hmm.
and I will decide which series get how many books. So I'm writing 7 series. One of them is for a traditional publisher. That's a whole other story. I owe them 3 books a year. But the other series, I'll be like, well, you didn't sell as well, so you only get maybe 1 or 2 books, and this one gets 3. And I will plot out where they're going to fall in the calendar, because I'll go ABC, ABC,
Mm-hmm.
ABC. And then on the 1st of January, I start writing those books. So anything from the previous year that didn't get written gets moved over. I don't announce any publication dates until the end of the year. So on my 1st of January newsletter will have all of the dates for the next year, because those books are written.
They're written.
I know they're going to be out. and then I'll start writing. And then if, say, a global pandemic happens and my creativity shrivels up and dies and I don't want to write for 2 or 3 months, it's 2021 that's affected, not 2020. I'm still producing books in 2020, just like I said I would. And then I've got to look at 2021 and make some adjustments there.
Makes sense. And like, how's that been working for you?
I mean, I sleep at night. It works really well. It suits the way that I work, and it suits the way that I suits my creativity. Because what I do is then I'll write, because I'm writing across so many different series. I will write.
Well, what before you go, when you're saying you're writing 7 series, how does that's all in cozy mystery, or are you writing out in other genres? Just so we have a more clear picture. And
they're cozy and cozy adjacent.
Okay.
So, like, it's a long story, Joe.
That's why we're here. Get it out.
Okay. It'll be the same time when we finish as we started, you know. I have some traditional cozy. I have a cold case series. I have a cozy thriller series, which is not a genre, but I write it anyway. I have cozies in space. I have cozy adjacent, so it's not strictly cozy because the main character moves around. It's a midlife crisis series, so it's a woman who turns 50 and decides to visit all 50 states. And weirdly, everywhere she goes, she finds a dead body. Kind of sucks, but there you are.
Don't come to our state. Hawaii doesn't want you.
So actually wrote one kind of based here.
Oh, yeah?
The second book is called Bewildered in Florida, and she's kind of there. But the first one actually is Anxious in Nevada, and it's set kind of at Horseshoe, you know. Just
I'm sure that there's been a lot of dead bodies there.
I'm probably not the first, yeah.
You could probably talk to somebody there. They could give you 2 or 3 years worth of stuff to write.
I don't want to write true crime. The joy of cozy is that it never really feels like it's about the dead bodies, right? I've forgotten the question.
The question was, I was talking about, like, what are, all the genres you've written. So you've answered that question, but you were going to kind of...
Oh, how is it working for me?
Yeah, how's it working for you?
I mean, it works... I sleep better at night, and there are places where it doesn't work. There are places where possibly it would be smarter business to do things differently. For instance, I will make all the decisions about next year at the end of this year. Halfway through the year, cozy, I'm trying to think of something weird without insulting anybody. Cozy mafia
becomes a big
harem.
deal. Yeah.
Becomes a big thing, right? And then everybody starts writing in that. Well, I'm like, even if I start writing it, I don't want to release that until the following year, you know? So there are disadvantages to the system, but what the system lets me do is it allows for, if I get sick, or like my daughter got her first job this summer, moved halfway across the state. I took a couple months out to drive her back and forth to get her moved into an apartment and get her settled. And I didn't have to worry about deadlines because all the deadlines are my internal deadlines, and I'm pretty flexible as a boss when I let myself have the time off. So it works well for me. It works well for me too because I've built up a readership who want to read my books, and they get my list on January 1st and they mark their calendar for the year. And I've never let them down. And that's one of the things that they keep coming back to me for. Is they know I'm going to hit those deadlines. Those books are going to go live the day they're supposed to go live.
So what's a typical day when you're not driving your daughter's furniture across the state look like?
So it used to be entirely dominated by getting my kids where they need to be. And now I'm an empty nester. And so I'm sort of restructuring it a little bit. Sorry.
You hear my thought?
But... usually mornings are for errand running if there's any errands that need running. Like the grocery store still needs to be shopped at and those kinds of things. And then admin. I do admin before I do any writing. I don't do a lot of admin, but there's always bills to pay and personal stuff as well as business stuff. Maybe an odd email to answer, things like that. Usually then, after lunch is writing time. And honestly, I do typically 5,000 words a day. Depends on which series I'm working on, because if I have a 50,000 word series, I write 15 chapters a book, which is 3,500 words a chapter. So I'll probably do 2 chapters and do 6,500 words, 6,600 words. If I'm writing a 75K book, they're 5,000 word chapters. So I'll just write 1 chapter. That's like 2.5, 3 hours. And then I'm done for the day.
Now, when you say you're admin, are you running ads and doing all kinds of marketing stuff? You can admit it.
I have some ads running. I do. I have some Amazon ads running, and I have some Facebook ads running. And I never look at them, like, ever. Like, I don't even... So the Amazon ads I set up probably about 2 years ago. I took somebody's free challenge course thing, set up a couple of ads, and then just left them running. I don't even know which books I'm advertising. They cost me less than $100 a month. The books sell. I know you're a business guy and you're appalled, but I don't look at how they're doing. My Facebook ads cost me more because Facebook will spend your money. But I had someone do some advertising for me. And when we stopped having that relationship, they left the ads running. So I've left the ads running. They cost me like $500 or $600 a month, and I don't touch those either. And one of the things, if my husband retires, one of the things he's going to do is actually look at all that stuff.
Oh, good.
But that'll be his job, because I'm not a data person. I make stuff up for a living. I feel like the ads are the price I pay for being in the business, and I assume they're generating sales.
Well, it'd be good to know, but in my mind, it'll be essentially you're not really running ads, right? That's not part of your marketing strategy. It's kind of the path I'm going with this.
Yeah.
You're just writing books, like you've got an audience, and you're just letting the organic audience build.
Yeah,
fair assessment.
I have. I do a newsletter. I do Facebook posts. I have a Facebook page, and I do post every day. But actually, genuinely, I do them all on a Sunday for the week. But we have different days of the week where different things happen, and it's a lovely group of people who share their lives with me, and that is what I love about what I do. Is there's nothing better than getting an email that said, like, I loved your book, I wait for your books, because I've been that reader, who can't wait for the next release. And I still pinch myself that I still can't quite believe that anybody is reading my books. Imposter syndrome does not go away, I will tell you, no matter how many books you sell, no matter how much, well, I don't know, maybe there's a number that I will eventually reach that I will feel like I'm not an imposter at this, but I haven't got there yet.
Well, I think that, sometimes when you're in that space where you're always feeling that uncomfortability, right? Because it's not necessarily that you're feeling you don't deserve it or that it shouldn't be you, but it's like you don't want to disappoint people.
Absolutely.
Right. It's not. You might be calling it imposter syndrome, but it's more like you've got this responsibility with these folks that really do care about what you're doing.
Well, I've been writing about Aunt Bessie since 2014, and I write alphabetical titles. So I've gone from A to Z, and I've started over again, and we're on M or N, so however many books that is. And Bessie, obviously she's very important and dear to me, but she's also very important to a lot of my readers. And when I sit down to write a Bessie, I'm always very conscious that she has this 10-year legacy now, and I need to. I love her. I would never I would never turn her into a stripper or something. But she's 80 something. I don't think anybody needs to go there. But
things would get real bad if the 80-year-old has to go to stripping.
But you feel almost more and more responsibility for this character that and I have had people email me and say, well, I hated the latest book because Bessie would never do that, or one of my other characters wouldn't behave in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the emails that I remember over the "I loved your book" emails.
Yeah.
In the same way, like I try not to read reviews because it's the same thing. There can be 500 reviews and 499 of them can be "I love the book," but it's that one that says, if Diana is clearly no longer trying and she's just dialing it in, that is the one that replays in my head when I'm in bed at night.
Yeah. Well, I've been living that for the past few months. Yeah, it's hard because when you're committed to something, you're trying to deliver, right? You're trying to stick every landing. And
every single book when I start it, I want to tell a story that people want to read.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to tell a story that I want to read. And that's where I started from, was I wanted to write books that I wanted to read. And that's why I write space cozies, because they're fun. They're not especially profitable, but they are really fun for me. And it's just a chance to like play with, I grew up watching Star Trek, right? It's that level of science fiction. It's the sets are rickety. It's not proper science fiction, which it makes it hard to market as well, because the sci-fi guys don't want to read it, and the cozy people don't want to read it either. So,
well, you never know. Who would have? And there's now cozy fantasy, right? And it's kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll be the person that it pops for.
Maybe it will suddenly take off, and everybody will be like, "But she was doing it first.
She was the first." Do you think that's kind of just, for you, kind of just like a palate cleanser?
Yeah, so there's actually, you'll appreciate this story, Joe.
I love stories.
I write my sci-fi cozies because I was at 20 books. And a author friend of mine said, why doesn't anybody ever set a cozy mystery on a spaceship? Seems like a logical place to have a cozy mystery. You have all the elements, right? You have the enclosed environment and all, community and all of that. So I said to this friend, I'll write it if you'll be a character. And he's like, yeah, use my name, it's fine. So then I went around to all of my author friends and I said, I'm going to write this book in space and I'd like to use your name. So all of the characters, most of the characters are named after authors that I've met at 20 Books conferences.
Interesting.
And if you've been to a 20 Books conference, you will pick up little references to different things. For instance, there's an A deck and a B deck. So all the wealthy people live on A deck, and the people who scrape together their pennies to get on it. It's a long distance spaceship traveling from Sinclair, which is an acronym of my hometown, to Valsegas, which is an acronym for Las Vegas. So they have to cross 26 sectors because we got to do the alphabet. And it's all little 20 Books references in there. So on B deck, so on A deck they have unlimited food and drink, but on B deck they have a cake machine. A cake vending machine that is the only one. They have a whole row of vending machines, and the cake one is always empty because everybody's buying the cake. So if you've been to 20 Books, you will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, that's where my assistant, Isabella, who's the main person helping us with the show, that's where she gets her breakfast.
Hey, you could do worse in Vegas, I'll tell you.
Well, what was funny was because of the week it is, every so often it's on my birthday. My birthday is November 8th, so sometime I can't, whatever, I think it was last year, or was it the year before? It was the year before. Anyhow, landed on my birthday. And Bonnie Paulson bought me and everybody else that we went out to dinner with a piece of cake out of the machine. And so Suze and I, we had some extras that people didn't want to take, and we gave them all to her, and over that week she...
Cake for breakfast. Yeah. I mean...
So it worked out
I
great.
am never gonna tell anybody they shouldn't have cake for breakfast.
No,
It's got all
no.
the healthy ingredients.
It's
flour
everything's
and
there. It's
milk and
eggs,
and
and
happiness and
yeah,
joy.
yeah.
Sprinkles.
Yeah, and that rainbow one, all that. And, what else is more American than being able to do whatever you want when you want to do it?
I mean, that's Vegas.
Yeah. So, now that you can tell the future because you're writing a year ahead, what's the future look like for you?
Nothing. Well, a lot more books.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more books. I have 10 or 12 more in Bessie, and then I'm probably going to do a third series of Bessie because I can't imagine my life without writing Bessie.
She's gonna be like 412 years old.
Well, the worst part is this is the worst part. Bessie originally was in one of my romances. I actually started with romance, and she was in the romance called Island Inheritance, and she was the source of the inheritance. So Bessie had just passed away in this book, but I wrote this really rich backstory for her. So when that book didn't sell, I'm like, I've got this character with this huge, I love her backstory. So I thought she would be the perfect main character for a cozy mystery series. So I set the cozy mystery series 15 years before the romance. And I thought if that series progresses one book a month for 15 years, that's how many books? I don't know, a lot. 15 times 12, a lot of books. I'll never write that many books. So here we are. I am now at a point where I am seriously considering retconning that romance and making it a 100th birthday party instead of an inheritance. Because my main character is an American who comes to the island to sort out the inheritance, but she could come for a birthday party, and then Bessie would still be alive because, yeah. So, but,
well, maybe that'll bring that book back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it would be nice if that. I have a lot of readers who won't read that book specifically because they know that Bessie's dead in it, and I get that, and I'm sorry because I had no idea when I wrote it that she was going to be that important to me.
Well, that's the beauty is you can just change it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, this is probably hard for you in the world that you roll around in because you go to a lot of conferences, you hear a lot of new ideas, and I probably shouldn't make assumptions, but it seems like while you are listening for new things to do, you're pretty happy with your system, and it has to be pretty amazing for you to want to change your process. Yeah,
so there are lots of really cool things that indie authors are doing out there, and I love hearing about them, and I take notes about them, and then I'm like, do I have the time, the energy, the desire to go that direction? Right now, I know personally a lot of my readers are in Kindle Unlimited because they're older women on fixed incomes. If I start trying to pull things and go wide, I'm going to be upsetting my reader base. So while it's a possibility, and I do think for certain series I might take things wide at some point, that's also a time and energy suck.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of most days, I think I just want to keep writing more books. Now, I do think about doing something like a Kickstarter for a special edition of something. But again, it's time and it's energy and it's whatever. I love the people that are having huge success with all the things. But my business model is working for me at the moment. Things stop working, I will explore other options,
Well, and I asked that just because I think that's super important for you to, that's too often we're like, well, what else do I need to do? What else do I need to do? And there's a lot of good businesses that just keep making the same donuts over and over again.
I mean, I have 150 more than 100. I haven't counted in a long time, but I have over 150 books on my backlist. So I think if the business started to struggle, my first priority would be to do more to boost that before I would start chasing other things.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
certainly you could get your husband on those ads and point him at the right series that are out there that maybe need a little advertising love. But, the other thing is, just from what you said, if I were you, I would never pull any of your existing stuff from KU. Since you've already got those books written, do you start to put them out in direct first, right? And see if there's either new readers you can find, or, one thing I'm never up for is, I think it's kind of a bridge too far to be trying to pull people out of KU to buy direct. Why would they? It's just not a good value proposition. There'll be a few, but if some of those books, and again, I'm not advocating this, it's just like you have a way of doing it that's pretty interesting.
I mean, the one thing, and I talked to another author, he actually writes lit RPG, and he says whenever anybody says, how do I duplicate your success, he says, well, the first thing you need to do is build a time machine, because you need to be there back when it started up. And it's very much that, I'm sitting here with 150 odd books on my backlist, having built 11 years in the business. I didn't start here,
Right.
So, yeah, so I can do a lot of things that newer authors just can't do yet.
Well, and I would, I think a career that's analogous to yours is Honey Phillips.
Yeah.
She's built to write books. She loves writing books. Her process a little different than yours, like maybe the exact opposite.
Yeah. I've talked to Honey about her process, which is like, my book is due tomorrow. I'm going to go write 10,000 words right now. And I wouldn't sleep. Right? I wouldn't eat. The stress would kill me.
But that hasn't changed, right? And again, like the time machine thing is that she has that capacity to do that because she's been consistent for over that time. She hasn't missed deadlines. She gets the book out. She's delivered on the expectations of her audience every single time. And now no one can replicate what the two of you have built up in whatever's behind the curtain at Amazon, with how it helps to let those people know that your book is out and ready to go, and that that takes 150 swings at this thing, right? Like, so I understand 100% what you're saying with that it has to be something that you have to go back and just do. That doesn't mean you need a time machine. It just means you have to start doing it now.
Absolutely. And I will repeat, my first year I made $143 in royalties. And I had 7 or 8 books out. Like, I emptied my bottom drawer, basically, the proverbial or mythical bottom drawer. I put up, my husband was the one who said, have you ever thought about publishing your books yourself? Because I was complaining about looking for a job and not finding one. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could make the writing thing do, because I love to write, and I'd been writing for years, but I'd never done anything with it. And he said, well, put some books up on Amazon, see how it goes. And the subtext of the conversation was, and then when they don't sell, you can get that actual job.
Okay.
So, neither one of us thought it was ever going to go anywhere. But it was, I just kept trying, and I kept trying with different things. And the reason I've always read and loved cozy, and I didn't think I could write it because I thought it was tricky, too complicated. And I didn't want to do it wrong, because I love cozy mysteries, like since Nancy Drew, right? And then I got a library book that was a traditionally published cozy that was so badly written that I said, I cannot write Agatha Christie level cozy, but I can write better than that.
Mm.
And I mean, at least I can make characters that aren't flat and a motive that actually is a motive. And so that was the impetus behind actually writing that first cozy, was I just have to be better than that really bad book. And I wish now that I'd written down the title and the author, because I would be sending that author flowers every year on the anniversary of the first Bessie. Because here we are 11 years later, and I've built an entire career from that first book.
Interesting. You said that you've always been writing. So, like, before you did that, like, how long, like, when did you start writing? Was it?
Oh my God. My mother has like short stories I wrote when I was in high school. Oh God, they're terrible. But I mean, we grew up before the internet.
Yeah,
we grew up when we had 3 channels and you couldn't get 2 of them because of the weather.
Yeah.
You know? So you spent a lot of time reading, and I spent a lot of time in my own head. So I would watch my favorite TV show, and then I would rewrite the story and put myself in it, you know. So, and then I would write short stories, and I would write, you know, I don't know how old I was when I had a first go at a novel length. I remember writing one when we first moved to the Isle of Man, and I sat down and I wrote this like book that was, it was a mums and tots group, which a parent and toddler group kind of thing. And I was in one because I had a toddler, and it was like the stories of each of the women and how they'd got to that point. And I'm sure it was absolutely dreadful, but I think it ended up being like 100,000 words. And I was like, wow, I kind of wrote a book here, you know. But I would write like short romances, and then I would send them off to Harlequin, and Harlequin would laugh and laugh and laugh, and then send me the postcard that was like, go away, we don't want your book. And those rejections, every time I got a rejection from and I'm talking maybe 5 times in my entire life, I would send something to somebody. But each of those rejections I felt was you're a terrible writer, you shouldn't be doing this, go away. I didn't understand the business enough to know that there's a difference between this isn't what we're looking for and you're a terrible writer, right? So the cool thing about going indie is I got a chance to put my book out there. Okay, for a full year, everybody else said you're a terrible writer as well. But eventually I found an audience.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was talking to Alex, previous podcast. We were talking about all the, you know, in publishing, and he was sharing about how much of the KU Global Fund and the top 400 books is indie. A lot of, you know, at this point, a lot of those people never got a rejection letter because they never tried. But there is a lot of people on that list that have a few of those in a drawer somewhere in their house.
Well, and going to conferences and talking to other authors, you learn so much more about the business. And you go to a conference and you hear a speaker who's a big name, traditionally published author say, my big break was having drinks with somebody in a bar who turned out to be an agent, but I didn't know it at the time. And those kinds of chance encounters, and somebody drove somebody to an airport and ended up selling their book to them. Like, you can't replicate that. That's not something that I can't tell you, go to every conference and volunteer to drive the speakers to the airport and you might get lucky, right? So what I love about the indie world is there are a lot of things you can try and replicate. And if at the end of the day, you're writing a good book that people want to read, that you can market because it's don't write space cozy. That is impossible to market right now till it takes off and I become the market leader.
I'm gonna crush. Yeah. You're gonna crush him. So you got such a big backlist.
But for the moment, it's really hard to market. You need to be solidly in a genre that is marketable. Like my cozy thrillers sell because it's a continuation of an original cozy series, so it has a baked-in readership. You can't market it to thriller people because they're not that level of thriller. They're really cozy, but it's also not cozy mystery. People don't die; they're more spy, which is thriller, but not. If you ever read back in the 1980s, I think they were first published. I'm going to go blank on it now. Mrs. Polifax.
Nope.
Mrs. Polifax was a retired lady who went to the CIA and said, I'm retired now. Nobody cares if I live or die. Why don't you send me on a mission? And through a series of misunderstandings, got sent on a mission. Ended up kidnapped in like Albania, and then saved the mission, saved the world. Everybody's happy, you know. So that was kind of where the idea for that series came from. But it's not marketable. That series only has like 4 books. I think there's more now. I actually think they might be writing more now. But anyway, I digress.
No, you don't. Yeah,
you can edit that right out of there.
No, we don't. We don't do that here. And unless like our videos stop, we don't. It's all going to be there out for the world forever on the internet. No, I hope that folks that are watching kind of see you as somebody to aspire to be, in the sense of not just that your hobby makes a lot of money, but that you've made the decision to do things like I spent enough time with you. You spent a lot of time, like you are taking notes at sessions. You're like you would think that you would have implemented like 1,000 different things, but you actually keep kind of going back to like, well, my thing's working, and using you as an example of somebody that it doesn't necessarily feel they have to imitate, right? That you're always kind of on the cautionary side of things, saying, well, unless I really see there's a risk reward here, why would I upset the apple cart?
Well, and I mean, I know my readership, and I know pretty much how much each new book is going to make release month. I know it'll make more over life, but I can pretty much tell you this book's going to come out on this date, and by the end of the month it will make X. It's not a huge number. I don't want people to think I'm making 7 figures. I'm not. But I am making 6 figures, and I know that release is going to do X. Mm-hmm. And then I weigh up, if I have to take 20 hours out of my week to work on Facebook ads, that book's not going to get written. Am I going to make enough from running Facebook ads to cover what I would have just made from that book? Maybe, maybe not. Which will bring me more happiness and inner peace, because 20 hours on Facebook ads, I would probably claw my own eyes out.
Yeah.
Or I can write the book, and I love the book, and I want to write the book, and you know.
Yeah, well, you know it works, and so why change it? Well, why don't you tell folks where they can find you if they decide they want to read Cozy Space Mysteries? And
I'd love for you to please read the Space Cozies. I love the Space Cozies. DianaXarissa.com, so it's Diana, Diana Xarissa.com. I have a website. I'm on Amazon. I am exclusive to KU, so you'll find all of my books there. And I will be at Author Nation if you want to come and talk to me about cozies. This is the thing. I come to a conference like Inkers Con. There's not enough cozy authors here. I could sit and talk cozies all day, all night. I cannot tell you how many authors I have dragged over to the cozy side because they've just been like, if I write a cozy, will you stop talking to me? And I don't know, am I putting in a little plug for my panel as well?
Yes, absolutely. Plug.
I will be moderating the Cozy Mystery Panel at Author Nation with some of my favorite cozy author friends. So I haven't met all of them yet, but they're already my friends because they're just the cozy space.
Are some of these you kind of fangirling over?
Maybe a little bit. The cozy space is really, like, I met somebody here that writes cozy that I knew of by reputation, but had never met, and I saw her name tag, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're so-and-so. I want to talk to you. And she was very gracious about talking to me, and we just sat and talked cozy for like an hour, like just intense cozy talk. So, I mean, it's like I said, it's been my favorite genre to read since Nancy Drew, and it's just my space.
Cool. Well, that's a good life.
It's a pretty good life. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, and it's I've actually learned some stuff I didn't know about you. So
that's scary.
yeah. I won't use it against you.
Oh, yeah, right. You will if you can, but.
Well, again, thank you for coming on the podcast, and thank you so much for helping with the management of that cozy panel and getting us some pretty spectacular people to be there. So if you are a cozy mystery reader and you want to hear Diana and her friends go nerd on this, you'll be in the room. You may even get to answer a question, but they may just be talking to themselves. Who knows?
I mean, we can do that. We can totally do that. I'm hoping to have time for questions because I would very much like to know what readers want to know or other authors want to know.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again.
You're very welcome. It's been fun.
Bye.